he spoke, "Not bad. This person's already in a half-awakened state. It won't take much longer before he awakens his soul force and becomes a full-fledged soul apprentice." Even though he was complimenting the man, there was a slight tint of disapproval to his face, and he was clearly complimenting him half-heartedly. Zhang Yang hadn't paid too much attention to it however and laughed. "A mere soul apprentice? There's no way such a character like that would be worthy of Lord Zheng's eye. The House of Zheng has so many geniuses and so many capable people, how could my own family even compare?" He knew that second Master Zheng came directly from the capital and was without a doubt looking down on his own family, so the fact that he came to Talos City this time for the Colosseum was a wonder on its own. All Zhang Yang had to do was to make sure he served him well without offending him. To their right was a person draped from head to toe in a black cloak so that his face couldn't be seen. His hands were crossed against his chest and his head was bowed down onto it, making it seem as if he was sleeping. By now, the battle in the ring was reaching a conclusion. Now that the bigger man was no longer a match for the middle-aged man, his movements were slower than before. The wounds on his body was growing more and more numerous, and the crowds chanting and cheering were growing in volume proportionally. In the end, the middle-aged man brought the bigger man to the ground with a kick, with his right foot slamming onto the man's chest. His two hands grabbed hold of the downed enemy's arms and gave them a heavy pull. Somehow, the arms of the man were torn off without resistance. A cheer unprecedented in volume erupted from the audience. Due to the gory nature of the scene, some of the female spectators turned their heads away from the sight. However, some of them glanced surreptitiously back towards the ring with excitement filling their red faces. At last, the middle-aged man brought his foot down onto the man's head, crushing it as if he would crush a watermelon. Seeing the white and red substance splash out onto the ground, Bai Yunfei could hold it in no longer and began to vomit in one of the corners to the room. Uncle Wu himself started to tremble and clutched at Bai Yunfei. Even the more ferocious-looking men in the room started to fear for their lives as well. At that moment, the wooden doors to this prison was thrown open with a dozen armed figures walking into the room. The man leading the group came to a stop in front of them and barked, "Everybody, out! Take your weapons and prepare to fight for your freedom." The group of men looked at one another, but in the end, they filed out of the room one by one. Uncle Wu and Bai Yunfei were the last two to leave. Whenever a person walked out from the room, someone standing at the gates of the room handed them a weapon from the war chest before letting them onto the ring. Still at a loss for words, he and Uncle Wu followed